It began with my daughter's smile. Bright, practiced, and just for show. After the accident, she said she'd take care of me. Family takes care of family, she insisted. But the locked doors, the whispered phone calls, the blinking eye in the corner, they told another story. One where I was no longer a mother, only a secret. It started with the sound of plastic bags crinkling and my daughter's voice echoing too brightly through the hospital room. "Mom, don't worry about a thing. I've got you." She smiled like it was a blessing to carry the weight of me, even for a little while. The fluorescent light made her teeth look whiter than they were, and for a second I thought, God, how lucky I am to have raised someone this competent, this caring. My hip was still screaming from the accident. A driver too busy checking his phone to see a woman in a crosswalk, but I managed to smile, small and obedient. My daughter, Jessica, had flown in from Orange County the morning after the accident. She brought me a new robe from Target, in a shade of pink I would never have picked, and a smoothie that tasted like paste and good intentions. The doctor said I'd need 4 to 6 weeks of full-time help. I had trouble getting out of bed, couldn't cook, couldn't even safely take a shower alone. They offered a Medicare-paid home aide, someone vetted and trained. Jessica interrupted before I could answer. "No need," she said, brushing a strand of highlighted hair behind her ear. "She's coming home with me. Family takes care of family." The nurse smiled and made a note. I was released the next day. Their house sat at the end of a quiet cul-de-sac, beige and boxy, with a trimmed lawn and one of those pointless fountains in the yard that never actually ran water. Inside, everything smelled like lavender cleaner and something more artificial beneath it, like the house itself was trying too hard. Her husband, Brandon, barely looked up from his laptop when we walked in. "Hey," he said, like I was the mail or a neighbor's cat. The kids didn't come down to greet me. Jessica rolled her eyes. "They're doing homework. You know how middle school is." The guest room was upstairs, which made no sense considering I could barely walk. But she'd made it nice, she said. There was a tray with snacks, a smart speaker I didn't know how to use, and a flat-screen TV mounted on the wall. I thanked her. She smiled again, that same shiny grin that didn't reach her eyes. "This is temporary, Mom. Just until you're steady. Then we'll see." That first night, I couldn't sleep. The pain meds made my thoughts foggy, like I was underwater and all the memories were bubbles I couldn't quite catch. Around midnight, I heard her on the phone. Jessica, pacing somewhere outside my door. "No, it's fine. She's here. We've got a camera set up. I just need her to stay still and take her pills." A pause. Yeah. I'll send you the footage." I sat up, breath shallow. Maybe I misheard. Maybe she was talking about something else. Maybe it was her work. She does something in marketing, or tech, or both. She's always vague about it. But the way she said, "footage," gave me pause. I glanced around the room. No camera in sight, but that didn't mean there wasn't one. The next day was oddly perfect. Breakfast in bed. A lukewarm oatmeal with blueberries and chia seeds. "Heart healthy," she said. She sat beside me and brushed my hair, like I was a child. "I ordered supplements for you, something for circulation, and collagen, for skin and joints." Her phone buzzed nonstop. She never stopped scrolling, but she always had a smile ready when she looked up. By afternoon, my head was spinning from the pills. I don't remember the names. Long, unfamiliar words printed on pharmacy bottles with her name, not mine. I asked if I could skip the evening dose. "Better not," she said too quickly. "Doctor's orders." When I woke up later that night, I felt off. My mouth dry, my tongue thick. I stumbled toward the bathroom, gripping the doorframe like a lifeline. The hallway light was on. I caught a sliver of Jessica, again on the phone, voice lowered. "She's weaker than I thought. Maybe 2-3 weeks, max. We'll manage." A pause. "No, I'm not rushing anything. I'm just saying, the sooner the better." I stood there, trying to convince myself I was dreaming. But the ache in my hip was real, and so was the growing pit in my stomach. Something wasn't right. But what? She was feeding me, bathing me, smiling, saying all the right things. Maybe I was just paranoid. Maybe the painkillers were messing with my head. Still, I started watching more closely. How long she left the room when I took my meds. How her tone shifted when she thought I was asleep. And the way Brandon never looked me in the eye. At dinner, he asked Jessica, not me, if I needed anything. Like I wasn't even there. I kept reminding myself, she's my daughter. She loves me. She's trying her best. But love shouldn't feel like surveillance. It shouldn't taste like chalky pills or sound like closed-door phone calls in the dark. On the third night, I caught a flicker of light above the bookshelf in my room. A small lens, barely bigger than a button. It blinked once, then went still. That was the moment I stopped feeling lucky. The door didn't lock with a click. It slid shut with the quiet finality of something designed to look benign. I'll be back tomorrow morning, Jessica had said, breezing in with a reusable grocery tote and a new bottle of pills. The sitter will check in, don't worry. She kissed the air near my forehead and left before I could finish asking, which sitter? The air in the room felt too still after she was gone. No footsteps upstairs, no voices. Just me, the hum of the TV on low volume, and the muffled growl of my stomach reminding me I hadn't eaten since breakfast. An hour passed, then another. I tried the door out of idle curiosity. It didn't budge. At first, I thought it was my own weakness. I leaned into it harder, pressing the edge of my shoulder against the frame. Nothing. Just a silent resistance. No keyhole on my side. No explanation. Just me and a door that didn't open anymore. By nightfall, the temperature dropped. The thermostat must have been set somewhere else in the house. I wrapped the blanket tighter around me and tried not to think about water, or food, or how the bathroom light kept flickering like an old motel bulb. I turned on the bedside lamp and caught a movement in the corner of the ceiling, the little blinking eye of the camera. I stared at it for a while, waiting to feel something. Anger, maybe, or fear. But I just felt dull, like my body knew this wasn't new. Not really. That I'd been boxed into other roles before. Mother, helper, babysitter, ghost. What was one more? By midnight, my lips were dry. My head throbbed behind my eyes. I stood up, too fast, and the room tilted sideways. I sank back down on the edge of the bed, heart pounding. Maybe she got held up, I whispered to myself. Maybe something happened to the sitter. The word tasted ridiculous. No one was coming. I shuffled to the dresser, looking for a glass. A thermos. Anything. Nothing. Not even a cup to cry into. The tap in the tiny half-bath gave one wheeze, then spat a few seconds of lukewarm water before going dry. I caught a handful and sipped it like it was champagne. I tried the landline phone. Dead. I banged it against the table once, twice. Still dead. My cell was gone. I'd left it charging in the kitchen, forgotten in a moment of trust. I called out once, then again. My voice sounded pitiful, even to me. Not a scream, not a cry. Just a hello, and the emptiness that followed. No one answered. I sat back on the bed and listened to the camera click faintly, adjusting its angle. At some point, I started wondering if Jessica had gotten into an accident. Maybe she hit traffic. Maybe the sitter got the date wrong. Maybe the camera was part of some overzealous home security system, and the locked door was just a mistake. But even those stories, I couldn't make stick. When light finally started to bleed through the slats of the blinds, I didn't feel relief. I felt dry, like the whole night had wrung the water out of me. I was hunched on the side of the bed, head cradled in my hands, when I heard the front door open upstairs. Footsteps. Laughter. Brandon, maybe? No, Jessica. I could tell by the sharp rhythm of her heels. Then she opened the door. Just like that. No apology. No explanation. She stepped in, lips pursed, eyes scanning the room. "Well," she said, like she'd just opened a closet and found a box she thought she threw out. "You're still up." I didn't speak. My throat was sand. Jessica put the tote bag down. "I brought you soup, chicken and barley. You'll feel better after you eat." She didn't look at me as she moved around the room, setting the bag on the dresser, plugging in the space heater, adjusting the curtains. She was acting. That much was clear. I was the audience. The camera was the witness. I found my voice. "Where were you?" Jessica didn't even flinch. "Out. Life doesn't stop, Mom. I told you someone would check in." "No one came." She shrugged. "Maybe they got confused. I'll follow up." I didn't ask more. What would be the point? She was already moving toward the door again. "I'll be back later," she said, as if this were normal, as if I hadn't spent the last 24 hours locked in a room with nothing but my thoughts and the dry scrape of my own breath. "Jessica," I said, and she stopped, hand on the knob. "Why is there a camera in here?" She didn't turn. "It's for your safety." Then she was gone again. I stared at the soup she'd left, still in its plastic container, and wondered what kind of poison could hide in barley. I didn't touch it. I didn't cry either. I just sat, feeling every inch of the bed beneath me, and realized I had become someone's secret. They moved me to the basement the next morning. Jessica said it was for convenience, like rearranging furniture. "Easier for everyone," she said with a quick smile and a pat on my shoulder, the kind that never lingers. "No more stairs. No more accidents." Brandon hovered in the hallway, arms crossed, eyes trained somewhere above my head like I was already halfway underground. They called it the guest suite. That's what the sign on the door said, guest suite, written in looping, cheerful cursive on a faux wood plaque. But what waited beyond that door was a storage room with drywall thrown up in a hurry, a cot wedged against one wall, a portable toilet behind a thin folding screen, and a single high window that showed nothing but dirt and roots. There was a space heater in the corner that rattled when it ran, and the air smelled faintly of dust and spilled bleach. The camera was already there, blinking steadily from the ceiling beam. The blanket on the cot was the one I'd bought Jessica when she left for college, navy with stitched white stars. I recognized a crack in the corner of the plastic storage bin beside the bed. That had been mine, too, a decade ago. "You'll be fine down here," Jessica said, placing my pill organizer on a tray beside the bed. "You've got everything you need. We'll bring meals. And it's private. Quiet." She said it like she was offering me a spa package. I asked her where the window opened. She said, "It doesn't," and left before I could reply. That first day, I lay still, trying not to think about how the walls felt too close, how the air carried no sense of time. I couldn't hear birds or traffic, just footsteps upstairs, sometimes heavy, sometimes hurried. Laughter once, a door slamming, the faintest strains of the television, but no voices for me. I asked for water around noon by calling up the stairs. No answer. Around 3, a knock at the door. Brandon came in, set down a tray of what looked like boiled vegetables and a microwaved chicken patty, and left without saying a word. The door locked behind him with a small final click. I sat in the dark for hours that night, thinking maybe I'd imagined it all wrong. Maybe this was temporary. Maybe Jessica was just overwhelmed. But the next day was the same. And the day after that. By the 4th day, I had memorized the sounds of their routine. The water running in the upstairs kitchen, the way their dog barked when the delivery guy showed up, the vacuum humming every other morning. And eventually, I started noticing the sounds that didn't make sense. The whispers, the ones coming through the duct vent above the cot. It wasn't much. A sliver of conversation here, a phrase there. but I leaned close and listened anyway. My hearing's not what it used to be, but sometimes clarity comes when you stop expecting it. She still has the Roth account, Brandon was saying one night, and the annuity. We just have to be smart about how we access it. I told you, we need power of attorney. I have the forms, but she needs to be seen as compromised, like mentally. Jessica's voice, sharp, annoyed. She seemed fine when the cop was here. Then we'll wait. A few more weeks of isolation. The camera will show confusion, slurred words. She skips pills sometimes. I can note it. I thought this was going to be easier, Brandon muttered. We can't mess this up, she snapped back. We owe too much already. If this doesn't work. The rest blurred into background noise, but the words hit like bricks. They were bleeding money. They wanted my accounts. My name? My decline? I sat on the edge of the cot, hands clenched in my lap, trying not to shake. My daughter, my only daughter, had locked me in a basement with a script already written for my exit, and I had been following it like a fool. Pills, silence, obedience. All while they watched, evaluated, plotted. That night, I didn't sleep. I stared at the vent and remembered her as a baby, how she used to cling to my leg when she was scared of the dark. I used to whisper to her, "You're safe. I'm right here." I mouthed those same words to myself now, not because I believed them, but because I didn't know what else to say. But I also knew something had shifted. Whatever part of me had still hoped this was a misunderstanding, that part died under that duct vent. They thought I was already too broken to fight back. They were wrong. The next morning, I asked for my blood pressure monitor. Jessica blinked, clearly caught off guard. "Why?" she asked, her voice overly casual. She held a travel mug in one hand and her phone in the other, already halfway out the door. "Because I'm dizzy," I said, which was true. My head spun like a cheap carousel every time I stood up. And if I pass out, you'll have to explain it to someone. She didn't like that. Her mouth pinched, but she handed it over, wrapped in a grocery bag like I'd requested something dirty. "You should stay in bed." I nodded sweetly. I planned to. What she didn't see was the folded tissue I'd palmed earlier, the one with Brandon's work login written on it, overheard through the vent and copied down in the dark. Not that I knew what I'd do with it yet, but information was power, and for once, I had a flicker of it. The basement had no signal, but the hallway upstairs did. I just needed one excuse. Later that afternoon, I called out, timing it between Brandon's work meetings. "Jessica," my voice trembled in just the right way, "can you check my medication chart? I think I missed a dose." She came down with an exaggerated sigh, holding her phone. "Mom, everything's on schedule. You're overthinking again. I need to see it. Please." I motioned to the table near the cot. "It's the pink folder, right?" As she bent down to reach it, I pointed weakly to the side table. "Wait, is that the right one? The one with the heart stickers?" She turned instinctively, and in that 2-second window, I slipped her phone from the tray where she'd set it. I tucked it under the blanket. She didn't notice. "Never mind," I said, voice small. "I guess I'm just tired." "Maybe don't fight me on everything," she snapped, then softened. "I know this is hard, but you're not well, Mom." She left. I waited 3 full minutes. Then I pulled the phone out. No password. Maybe she thought no one else would ever touch it. I went straight to the dial pad. My hands were shaking, but I managed to type in the number I hadn't used in almost 6 years. Frank answered on the second ring. "Hello?" "Frank," I whispered. "It's Helen." A pause. Then, "Helen? Are you okay?" Number. "But I need your help. I don't have long." I gave him the address, told him the basics, enough to make him take it seriously. I didn't cry. I didn't even breathe hard. I just laid it out like I was ordering lunch. Then I hung up and slipped the phone under the mattress. 30 minutes later, Jessica came down in a panic. Did you touch my phone? I looked up from my book. Your what? It's gone. I blinked. You must have left it in the car. She glared, then turned and stormed out. 10 minutes later, I heard her yelling upstairs. Brandon swore. Then silence. That night, dinner was late. And cold. Just toast. No tea. I didn't care. I spent the evening listening at the vent, piecing together fragments of a phone call. Jessica was frantic. Brandon more measured. You're losing control, he said once. This wasn't the plan. At midnight, I slipped the phone into the laundry basket during her nightly check-in. Found it, I said. It was under your coat. Jessica stared at me for a second too long. Of course. She left. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. But I'd done it. The message was out. The cavalry, if you could call Frank that, was coming. Now all I had to do was stay alive long enough to open the damn door. The knock came just after noon. Not a pounding, not aggressive. Just 2 firm raps on the front door, like someone who had a reason to be there and time to wait. I heard Brandon curse from upstairs, the sound carrying through the vent like a dropped stone. Footsteps followed. Jessica's voice, too shrill to be casual. Just wait. Don't open it yet. I stood in the basement with my ear pressed against the vent, heart racing. I didn't know if it was Frank or someone he'd sent, but I knew that knock wasn't an Amazon delivery. I backed away from the cot and sat up straighter, just in case someone peeked through the basement door. I wanted them to see me upright, awake, aware. Voices upstairs. Jessica opened the door. I could tell by the way the wind hit the chime. Then a familiar voice. Frank. Calm, steady. Hey there, Jessica. It's been a while. A pause. Hi, Frank. I wasn't expecting... How did you know where... Your mom called me, he said. No hesitation. Another pause. Tighter this time. She did? She told me she wasn't feeling safe here. Said she was being isolated. I'm here to see for myself. I'm sorry, but she's not well. She's confused. It's part of the medication. We've got doctors involved. Then you won't mind if I check in on her, he said. I brought someone with me. That's when I heard the other voice. A woman. Professional. Crisp. Jessica, I'm Officer Lang with the Orange County Sheriff's Department. We've received a wellness check request. We just need a few minutes with your mother. I heard the air shift. A chair scrape. Brandon muttered something low. The door to the basement unlocked a moment later. Jessica stood there with the smile of someone who's rehearsed a scene and hates that the audience changed at the last second. Hi, Mom, she said brightly. You have some visitors. I didn't answer her. I looked past her, up the stairs, and saw Frank, older than I remembered, with a windbreaker zipped halfway, and those same 2 big sneakers he always wore. He looked right at me and gave a small nod. Not pity. Recognition. Then came the officer, tall and blonde with a clipboard and steady eyes. Ma'am, she said, do you feel safe here? Jessica stiffened. She's been confused, dehydrated. The doctor said, Jessica, I said, loud and clear. Let her ask me. The officer turned back to me. Do you feel safe? I swallowed once. My mouth was dry, but my voice held. Number I haven't for days. Frank moved past Jessica and came to stand next to me. Helen, you want to go somewhere else? I'll take you. I nodded. Jessica started to speak, some concoction of concern and confusion, but the officer raised a hand. Ma'am, we'll speak with you separately. Please step aside. They let me walk out on my own, wrapped in the old cardigan I'd kept under the cot. Brandon didn't say a word as I passed. Jessica followed us to the door, still talking, still trying to spin something about dementia and misplaced pills. But it was too late. At the hospital, The doctors found early signs of kidney strain from dehydration, bruising on my back and arms, and clear malnourishment. They took photographs. They made notes. Social services came. They asked careful questions, and I gave them careful answers. Nothing exaggerated, just facts. My voice didn't shake. I stayed there 3 nights. The nurses were kind. The food was bland but warm. I got to brush my teeth in front of a mirror. I got to sleep without a camera overhead. Jessica came once. She stood by the door to my room, arms folded. "You know what you've done?" she asked. I nodded. "I survived you." That was all. When she left, the room felt lighter. I sat there with the IV in my arm, staring at the beige wall and thinking, they had written me off, marked me for disappearance in my own life. But I was still here. And now I had names, papers, and voices on my side. It wasn't over. It was just beginning. The courtroom smelled like disinfectant and nerves. Cheap linoleum, bad lighting, folding chairs lined up in rows. Nothing dramatic, nothing like the movies, just slow procedural suffocation, which fittingly was how Jessica had tried to get rid of me in the first place. I sat beside my attorney, a no-nonsense woman named Marlene, who wore block heels and carried a binder like a weapon. Frank was in the back row, arms crossed over his chest, like he could will the outcome with posture alone. He'd been with me every step of the way. Doctor's visits, social worker interviews, even the first police report when I gave my full statement. We never said the word friend. We didn't have to. Jessica sat across the aisle with her own lawyer, a smug man in a navy suit who kept touching his tie like it might choke him if he didn't keep it in line. She wore a muted cardigan, no makeup, hair pulled back like a schoolteacher. The mask of concern didn't fit quite right anymore. Too stretched. Too rehearsed. Her eyes flicked toward me once. No warmth, no remorse. Just calculation. Testimonies came first. The ER nurse described my dehydration, the bruises, my physical state when I arrived. The physician confirmed I'd lost 15 pounds in 3 weeks. The social worker detailed the living conditions. Windowless basement, no access to a phone, meals that didn't meet basic dietary needs. Then came the audio. It wasn't much, just fragments I'd repeated to the investigator, who matched them to the vent recordings Jessica's own security system had archived in the cloud. I had no idea those vents picked up so much. In one clip, Brandon's voice, "She still has the Roth account. We just have to be smart about how we access it." And Jessica, "We need to make her seem unstable. A few more weeks of isolation." The judge listened without interrupting, a man in his 60s, gray eyebrows like little flags over tired eyes. I watched his expression shift, slowly, as the pieces clicked together. Not outrage. Judges don't do outrage. But there was something else. Disgust, maybe, and just a flicker of pity. Marlene finished with a clean blow. A copy of a forged medical release, signed not in my handwriting, giving Jessica access to my Medicare records. That alone was enough to trigger a federal review. Jessica's lawyer objected, claimed stress, misunderstanding, said she was under financial strain, trying to help a difficult parent with declining faculties. I stood. The judge looked at me, and I didn't wait for permission. "My faculties," I said clearly, "are just fine. I'm not senile. I'm not confused. And I'm not disposable." That was all. In the end, it wasn't about vengeance. It was about restoration. Jessica was charged with elder abuse, fraud, and unlawful imprisonment. Brandon took a deal to testify. Turns out loyalty has a limit when prison is involved. Their house went up for sale within the month. I didn't go back to mine. Instead, I bought a little cottage near the coast. Nothing fancy. 2 bedrooms, a walkable kitchen, a porch that catches the breeze just right in the early evenings. I got a rescue dog, named him Pilot. I figured after what I'd been through, I deserved something that wagged its tail when I walked into a room. Frank visits most Thursdays. He brings those awful almond cookies I pretended to like back in the 70s, and we drink tea and pretend we're not pushing 80. We don't talk about Jessica much, but sometimes I catch him watching me the way people do when they've seen something lost and unexpectedly found again. I revised my will, left part of my savings to a local group that helps elder women escape abusive care situations. The rest goes to a scholarship fund in my mother's name, for older women going back to school. Because maybe second chances should be built into the system, not left to luck. Some nights, I sit on the porch, Pilot asleep at my feet, and I watch the tide come in. The air smells like salt and eucalyptus. The wind runs fingers through my hair like someone who remembers me from better times. And I think, not with anger but with clarity, she tried to erase me, but I'm still here. And now, I take up space.